Pretend hacker Barry. Mom sing-songed, loud enough for the chandelier to tremble. Can't even manage files, and she wants to run systems? Cute. Now get out if you can't follow simple family plans. You're embarrassing our family. Dad's voice cracked the room like a gavel. Laughter fluttered at the edges, champagne bubble cruel. Someone near the dessert table whispered, "That's her?" She turned down 26 grand to code feelings. A waiter stalled with a tray of macarons, deciding whether to pass me or the applause forming around my brother's fiancée. I swallowed heat. My palms were slick. My throat felt like it was zipped shut. I had built firewalls strong enough to stop botnets. Tonight I couldn't stop a rumor. The violins swelled for the engagement toast, and my name stuck like gum under the heel of it. Everyone my name is Raina, and I wasn't born rich, I was born accurate. I read glitches in people the way others read text, fast, quiet, unblinking. Across the ballroom, Fortress Tech's clients, 4 of them, clustered near the ice sculpture, staring. "You're the Fortress Tech CEO," one gasped, more accusation than awe, as if I'd crashed my own life with a fake title. My mother's eyes flicked to them, then to me, then to the exit, calculating. Dad stepped closer, cologne and fury layered like bad encryption. "You will accept the $26,000 admin job tomorrow," he hissed, "or you will not step foot in this house again. Family first. Image first." I could feel the parquet under my heels, glossy as a lie. The lead wall behind the stage rolled a slideshow of childhood photos, my brother blowing out candles, me, cropped at the edges like a typo no one had time to fix. I remembered the meeting last month, how a VC said, "We like your numbers, Raina, but we need your narrative bigger. The kind of bigger that fits inside other people's expectations." "Get out," Mom repeated, thin smile framed in pearls. "Before you make a scene." Make a scene. My pulse counted down. I imagined a cursor blinking. I imagined a door clicking shut. I imagined the truth, loud and clean. Then the string quartet cut mid-note, the lights dimmed a shade too much. On the far screen, a login prompt flashed, one only I would recognize. The venue's network had just found a stranger on its spine. Somewhere between the cake and the congratulatory speeches, a breach had walked in wearing a suit and a smile. The moment that prompt appeared on the screen, my stomach tightened. Nobody else noticed yet. The champagne was flowing, laughter bouncing between crystal walls. But I knew that wasn't a slideshow glitch. That was a handshake request, buried inside the venue's Wi-Fi. Someone was poking where they didn't belong. I glanced at my brother, basking in golden light, his fiancée showing off the diamond Dad had paid for. He didn't even see me. I could have been wallpaper. But the clients did. Their eyes stayed locked on me, waiting, hungry for confirmation that I was either a fraud or a force. I tucked my phone from my clutch, fingers trembling. Dad leaned in, voice syrup poison sweet. "Don't you dare pull your little tricks here. This night isn't about you." His hand squeezed my arm, hard enough to leave a mark. I held my breath and looked at the login prompt again. This wasn't about me. Not yet. Someone was targeting Fortress Tech's golden accounts. And if the breach wasn't stopped tonight, their engagement party would become the headline of tomorrow. Fortress Tech compromised at family celebration. But telling Dad that? Telling Mom? They would only hear Raina making excuses again. I typed 3 commands into my phone, discreet, hidden beneath the white tablecloth. My screen lit with scrolling code, green over black. A familiar voice inside me whispered, "You can shut this down in seconds. Or you can let it burn and watch their empire fall." My chest tightened. I saw Mom smirk across the dance floor, saw Dad's clenched jaw. They wanted me invisible. Disposable. The cursor blinked at me like a dare. Clients whispered again, "Is she really the CEO?" One of them raised a phone, maybe recording. I looked at the login request one more time. Whoever was on the other side wasn't backing down. For the first time all night, I smiled, just barely. Because maybe, just maybe, letting the breach breathe for a moment would reveal more than my parents ever wanted the world to see. The music swelled again, drowning out the static in my ears, but I couldn't unsee that flashing login prompt. Every note from the quartet felt like a countdown. My phone vibrated once, an alert, an authorized root attempt detected. Source unknown. I should have locked it instantly, cut off the attacker before they got deeper. That was what a good daughter would have done. Protect the company, protect the family's glittering image. But I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the command key, and instead of typing, I looked up. Dad was laughing now, head thrown back, chest puffed, his hand resting proudly on my brother's shoulder. Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just been called a pretend hacker in front of clients and strangers. My mom clinked glasses with the fiancé's parents, pearls gleaming under chandeliers. And me? I was the shadow at the edge of their perfect photograph. Let it burn, the voice inside me said again. Let the network scream the truth for once. The clients whispered in urgent tones, watching my every move. I caught the word security breach on their lips. My pulse slowed, calm in the storm. They didn't know it yet, but the breach wasn't mine. And if I timed this right, the proof would crawl across every glowing screen in this ballroom. I ran another command, this time to trace. The results scrolled faster than the chandeliers flickered. Origin bouncing through VPNs, proxies, disposable servers. But one hop revealed a local IP. My chest froze. The breach wasn't outside. It was inside. The cursor blinked, waiting for me to decide. Expose the intruder now or watch the infection spread. I looked toward the head table. My brother's laptop sat open next to the engagement cake, screen dimmed but not locked. He was laughing too hard to notice. And in that moment, I realized, this wasn't a random breach. This was someone close. Someone bold enough to sabotage from within the celebration itself. My lips curved, not in joy, but in a cold recognition. Because sometimes betrayal doesn't come from enemies in shadows. Sometimes it's sitting right at your family's table. The trace kept blinking the same thing, local access. My brother's laptop. My heartbeat drummed so loud I thought the entire ballroom could hear it. I pushed my chair back slightly, the legs scraping faintly against polished wood. No one noticed, they were too busy raising glasses to his future. I slid along the edge of the room, the golden light skimming my shoulders like a spotlight I didn't want. My phone pulsed again, privilege escalation attempt detected. Whoever was inside wasn't just sniffing, they were climbing. They wanted admin keys, the very skeleton of Fortress Tech. I reached the head table. My brother's laptop sat there, screen faintly glowing, reflection of crystal chandeliers dancing across it. I tapped the trackpad, and the login screen flickered alive, alongside a background process, lines of code still running. Bold. Careless. I typed fast. My fingers moved with instinct, muscle memory carved from nights spent defending networks Dad said I wasn't mature enough to handle. My code chased theirs, the ballroom fading around me, voices muffled, only the hum of betrayal in my ears. Then I saw it. The username tied to the session. My brother's. I froze. It wasn't a random intruder. It wasn't some outside hacker proving me right. It was him. The Golden Sun. The reason this entire party existed. He'd been inside Fortress Tech servers all along. Why? For leverage? For money? Or because he knew if I ever got the credit I deserved, the spotlight might shift? I straightened, breath shallow. Behind me, Dad's voice boomed. To my son, the pride of Fortress Tech's future. Applause roared. My brother grinned at the crowd, hand wrapped around his fiancée's. No one noticed me standing at his laptop, staring at the evidence of his betrayal glowing like neon. The cursor blinked again. I could press one key, just one, and the feed would project across every screen in this ballroom. The truth, raw and undeniable. But my hand hesitated. Because revenge wasn't just about timing. It was about letting them dig their own graves deep enough that no one could pull them out. I closed the laptop slowly, lips tight. And for the first time that night, I wasn't the one embarrassed. The applause still thundered when I returned to my chair, but I didn't sit. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the electricity of knowing. My brother's secret wasn't a theory, it was a fact, glowing in code I had traced myself. I studied him from across the room. The heir of Fortress Tech, standing tall in his designer tuxedo, arm draped around his fiancée like a trophy. He was smiling, teeth polished, eyes hollow. He had no idea I'd touched his machine, no idea I knew he'd been tunneling through the system like a rat in our walls. My phone buzzed again, another alert. His session was still active, burrowing deeper. He thought no one was watching. I had two choices: shut it down now, spare the company the headlines, let my parents believe their perfect son was flawless. Or wait. Let him keep going, let the infection spread until the entire party, every client, every guest, every relative, saw who the fraud really was. My mother's laugh cut through the music. Raina's always dramatic, she told a cluster of women in sequins. She wanted to innovate, but what does that mean? Blogs? Apps? They laughed, tilting champagne flutes. I clenched my jaw. She had no idea her golden boy was chewing through the very empire they worshipped. The string quartet shifted to a slower waltz. Couples moved to the dance floor. My parents joined, elegant and rehearsed. I stayed at the edge, watching. My phone's screen glowed against the dim. I was tracing not just his session, but where his tunnel led: hidden accounts, transfers, a shadow ledger. Numbers appeared, tens of thousands quietly shifted. Fortress Tech wasn't just compromised. It was already bleeding. And then it hit me, he wasn't hacking out of curiosity. He was funding something. My throat tightened. The cursor blinked again, daring me. If I leaked the screen now, it would end him, end this party, end the illusion. But if I waited, if I let him hang himself with his own rope, the collapse would be complete. I closed my fist around my phone, whispering only to myself, not yet. Because revenge, like code, is all about execution. The waltz wrapped the room like a velvet shroud and my phone hummed against my palm, an insect with urgent news. My brother's session kept spawning processes, each one a breadcrumb into accounts I'd never been allowed to see. My screen showed transfers landing in an unbranded trust, small at first, then ballooning like a hidden tumor. Names I recognized, vendors Dad bragged about, linked to shell companies I'd never been told existed. I watched my parents twirl under the chandelier, Mom's pearls catching the light like watchful eyes. They looked so proud, so sure, so blind. I pictured their faces when those numbers became proof on the front page: Fortress Tech funds diverted, heir implicated. The thought made a cold, steady calm spread through me. My mind mapped options: legal, public, quiet. I thought of the nights I'd patched servers at 2 a.m., fingers numb, while Dad slept in a house paid for with the very contracts I'd kept safe. I thought of every accusation, every humiliating dinner where they laughed and called me pretend. Each one stacked like bricks beneath my ribs. He was still inside, cursor blinking like a heartbeat. I could plant a trace, make it look like an external exploit, protect the company while exposing him later in a court that would strip his name from the invitations. Or I could broadcast raw proof now, watch the room dissolve into gasps and shouts and the kind of shame that sticks. A small part of me, smaller than an apology, wanted to spare Mom and Dad the spectacle. Another part wanted them to feel the floor drop from under their feet, to hear the silence they'd given me echoed back. I scrolled deeper and found something that narrowed my chest, a transaction tagged not to a vendor, but to a foundation in my hometown, one I'd once applied to for a small grant and been denied without explanation. Someone had rerouted community funds into private pockets. My fist tightened. The music swelled. My brother raised his glass to the crowd, smile wide, and in that smile I saw the ledger of everything they'd built on lies. I tapped a single line, not to expose yet, but to set a small breadcrumb, an invisible flag only I would know. It would call back, quietly, later. A leash. Because tonight, I decided, would not be the night they buried me. It would be the night I set the trap. The breadcrumb I planted was invisible to everyone but me, a tiny callback hidden inside an innocuous process, a digital whisper that would only sing if someone tried to erase it. I watched the logs for almost an hour, pretending to enjoy the dessert while the code breathed beneath the ballroom's glamour. The leash was set. Now the trap needed a hand to pull. At 10:12 p.m., my phone pinged. A tiny packet retraced the route I'd marked. Someone had touched the flagged line, curious, sloppy. The breadcrumb called back and returned a single file, a PDF with a signature I knew too well. My chest dropped into a cold well. It was a transfer approval my brother had signed with Dad's initials beside it. The proof had teeth. My lips went dry. I slid away from the table again, this time with purpose. The clients were clustered by the bar, smartphones out, gossip like netting around the room. Mothers compared dresses, fathers traded polite lies. No one saw me move like I was part of the wallpaper of a house I'd been told not to ruin. I didn't expose him in the moment. That would have been messy, and messes feed gossip, not justice. So I did something sharper. I copied the file, encrypted it with a key only I knew, then uploaded a sealed packet to a private legal inbox I'd created years ago, a box labeled "Do Not Open Unless," with the lawyer I'd once trusted for small things. The lawyer didn't know the whole story, but the packet contained undeniable proof: transfers, accounts, signatures, timestamps. The box would sit there until I gave the word. I walked back through the ballroom and watched them from the fringe. Mom laughed at something someone said and leaned closer to Dad, oblivious to the ledger stitched through their smiles. My brother toasted the room and winked at his fiancée, a practiced motion. The sound of their voices blurred into a background hum I had learned to read like code. For a moment, a tiny, human thing surfaced: fear. Not for myself, I had spent years learning to anchor that, but for what would happen when the quiet broke. Would Mom's pearls tangle in shame? Would Dad's voice finally sound small? Would my brother cry and beg? Or would they tear me apart for daring to open the window? I let the fear settle like frost. Then, heart steady, I raised my glass to the toast and whispered under my breath, not to anyone, not to the room, but to the slow justice I was about to set in motion: watch carefully. The toast ended with thunderous applause, champagne fizzing like false promises. I lowered my glass, my fingers steady, my pulse no longer wild. The leash was in place, the evidence secured, the silence before the storm humming in my veins. Dad announced, "To family legacy." His voice soared, filled with pride for a son who had just stolen from the very foundation he claimed to inherit. The guests echoed, oblivious. My brother grinned wider, raising his glass higher, basking in a glow that wasn't his. And me? I no longer felt the weight of their laughter pressing me down. I stood taller, invisible only in their imagination. My phone buzzed one last time, the callback confirmed. My private inbox had sealed the packet. The lawyer now held a fuse they couldn't cut. I walked toward the exit, heels clicking against the marble floor, each step a punctuation mark. Mom noticed. "Where are you going?" she called, tone sharp, rehearsed, meant to cut. I turned. The ballroom lights glinted off her pearls, off Dad's cufflinks, off the diamond on my brother's fiancée's hand. For the first time, I didn't shrink beneath it. I smiled. Not cruel, not loud, just steady. "You wanted me out," I said softly, but the hush that followed carried my words farther than a shout could. "Consider this my final gift. I won't ruin your night. But tomorrow belongs to me." Gasps rippled at the edges. The clients, sharp-eyed, caught the tremor beneath my calm. Dad's jaw tightened, suspicion flickering. My brother shifted, laughter faltering, as if some instinct told him the spotlight had turned. I didn't wait for their response. I opened the door, the cool night air rushing in, cleansing the heat of the chandeliers. Outside, the city buzzed, alive, indifferent, honest. My phone screen lit up once more, the breadcrumb blinking like a heartbeat I controlled. I inhaled, chest light for the first time in years. Justice wasn't about spectacle, it was about precision. And now, precision was mine. Tomorrow, the world would see the truth they had buried me under.